Welcome to day 35 of our school year. There you go. Alright, so let's get our beginning fraction. Our denominator is 180, so that's how many total school days, and we're on day 35. So we need to find our factors of our numerator, which is 35. Two factors we always know are 1 and the number itself. Using the commutative property of multiplication, I can write it as 35 times 1. Now I'm going to use my divisibility rules, and I'm going to go in order to make sure I don't miss any. So after 1, in order, I try 2. The rule for 2 is that it ends in an even number. 5 is odd, so 2 is not a factor. And in fact, if 2 is not a factor, no even number will be. So all I need to try are odd numbers. So the next odd number after 1 is 3. The rule for 3 is that we add the digits together. 3 plus 5 is 8. 8 is not a multiple of 3, so 3 is not a factor. The next odd number is 5. The rule for 5 is that it ends in a 0 or 5. It ends in a 5, so 5 is a factor. 5 times 7, 7 times 5. The only counting or natural number between 5 and 7 is 6. So we check the divisibility rule for 6. The rule for 6 is that both 2 and 3 are factors. 2 is not a factor and 3 is not a factor, so 6 is not a factor. We get to 7 and we're done. So let's go ahead and list our factors from least to greatest. 1, 5, 7, 35. We have 4 factors. That is more than 2 factors, so it is composite. And now we want to find our greatest common factor. So let's start with our greatest factor here, see if it's common. So we have 35. Your groups do not have to look like mine, but you do need to have 35 in each group, and you need to keep your shaded separated from your unshaded. So here 5 plus 30, 30 plus 5, 5 plus 30, 30 plus 5, and I end up with a remainder of 5. So that means 35 is not a common factor. Okay, so let's try 7. So we're making groups of 7. You want to keep your shaded separate from your unshaded, and it doesn't matter what your groups look like as long as there's 7 in each group. Okay. So make sure you have 7 in each group. So I cut off 3 from each because I know each row has 10, and I can decompose that into 7 plus 3. So I know that these are all groups of 7 without having to count. When you use your reasoning about numbers and looking at patterns, it can help you go a little more quickly. But if you need to count, counting will always work. And it looks like I have a remainder of 5 again. So that means that 7 is not our greatest common factor, so let's try 5. Since 5 is half of 10, I can just cut my rows in half. Okay, and remember, your groups do not have to look like mine. You just need to make sure you have 5 in each group, and the shaded is separated from the unshaded. All right. 5 worked, finally, one that works. So 5 is our greatest common factor. Let's count up how many total groups of 5 we have. I have 2 groups of 5 in each row, so I can count by 2s. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, 32, 34, 36 total groups. I have 2, 4, 6, 7 shaded in. Okay, I've done my division with my model, so now I need to do it with my algorithm. I'm dividing into groups of 5 because that's what I made, and they always have to be the same. It has to be a common factor. So let's go ahead and do our long division. Alright, so 5 makes me think of 5 cents, makes me think of nickels, and it takes 20 nickels to make $1 or 100 cents. 5 times 20 is 100. Numbers the same, zeros a game. More on top, no need to stop. Numbers the same, zeros a game. 10 times 5 is 50. Numbers the same, zeros a game. More on top, no need to stop. And then 6 times 5 is 30. Numbers the same, zeros a game. Add up these partial quotients. 0 plus 0 plus 6. 2 plus 1. I get 36. Over here, let's see, 5 times 5 is 25. Numbers the same, zeros a game. More on top, no need to stop. And then 2 times 5 is 10. Numbers the same, zeros a game. 5 plus 2 is 7. So say you don't know your 7s, you can still get there by what you do know. Your 5s and your 2s. You can still get to your result. We still need to check divisor times quotient plus remainder, divisor times quotient plus remainder. Now for each one, our remainder is 0, and the identity property of addition says when you add 0, it stays the same. So since it's going to stay the same, we don't need to take the time to add 0. 5 times 6 is 30. 5 times 3 tens is 15 tens, plus 3 more tens is 18 tens, or 180. 5 times 7 is 35. 35 matches our dividend up here. 180 matches our dividend up here. So they both check. So our numerator is definitely 7. Our denominator is definitely 36. Now let's go ahead and write it in our data collection page. Okay, we're still in trimester 1, week 8. Today is 9/26/19, and our fraction for today is 7/36. Go ahead and get out our number line. We did groups of 5, so here we go. 636. I'm sorry, 536 and then 636. Well, that is equivalent to 10/60ths, to 15/90ths, but our equivalent fraction in lowest terms is 1/6. And then today is 7/36. And there's no number below it, just above it. So 35/180th is our only equivalent fraction on this paper. So this is our simplest form, or equivalent fraction in lowest terms. Go ahead and put your number line away, erase your worksheet, and thank you for joining me.